Hello everyone, my name is Tom. I got depression. That's not appropriate. I shouldn't be sharing my actual feelings with the real world. And welcome to Let's Talk with Tom, the show where I talk about anything in animation that I want to talk about. And today, I want to talk about being Puppycat because it's a lot of things. But it seems like it's not a lot of things at the same time, when really it is a lot of things. And I find that interesting. I find that intriguing. So for those of you who do not know what being Puppycat is, it's one of the Frederator shows. Yes, Frederator, my lord, the corporate entity that I must answer to. Being Puppycat has a dedicated fandom that seems to have a pretty wide range, but that fandom is also small. It's relatively small, and it almost feels like the show feels unknown. The show almost feels unknown at times, and that's because not a lot of people really talk about it. Because it seems like there's not a lot to talk about on the surface. Being Puppycat seems to be about nothing and accomplish very little. But then there's also a lot of lore, and the mundane, everyday things just kind of happening actually add up into a pretty profound story about love and loss. When I first watched this, I felt like there was nothing to talk about, but then once I took a deeper look, there's actually a lot. But I guess if you're gonna dive deep into anything, you should probably start at the surface. So on the surface, Being Puppycat is a very calm and fluffy show. It's kind of like a lo-fi cartoon, kind of like I said about Summer Camp Island. It's about the quiet life of a millennial woman and her pet/roommate, who is a dog/cat, and she's living modestly, working temp jobs to get by. She also has a friend who is a guy, but not her boyfriend, and his name is Deckard. Basically, they're just friends who seem to care very deeply about each other, and sometimes it seems like maybe that's more than just platonic. And the only reason I chalk it up to being that much is because at one point, Deckard's sister, Cass, straight up acknowledges like, yo, y'all clearly like each other. And it's not protested. It's not like, oh, nah, it's not like that, bro. She's just my friend or whatever. There's like, yeah, I know. And the thing about the show that you gotta kind of understand when watching it, everything is pretty literal. Like, if something is said in dialogue, that's just like a rule. Like, if they say something flat out, you can usually assume that's the case. That's the writing telling the audience a thing about their relationship. So keep that in mind. But there's nothing serious going on. And at no point in this show to establish that there's anything serious between them. And like I said, they're pretty straightforward about things, so if there was, we would know. And I get that situation, because I did that a lot as a teenager, where you're like, okay, we clearly like each other, but we're not gonna commit to anything. In my experience, from what I've seen, being on Earth for as long as I have, relationships usually either happen really fast, where it's like you meet each other, you figure things out, and then bam, boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, whatever. But in other cases, things tend to go very slowly. And there's rarely really an in-between. Usually it's either you figure things out and you go forward, or you take a long time and you're like, okay, let's see what happens. And usually this is portrayed in fiction, but not like this, which I prefer this because it's more realistic compared to a will they, won't they, which will they, won't they's, I feel like really warp the perception of how relationships happen for most people. Because they're like, oh, if I like someone, I just gotta wait for something spectacular to happen that will bring us together and tell us how we feel. And it's like, nah, speak up, bro. Like, you gotta communicate how you feel. You can't just be like, off in the corner like, oh man, I sure hope I end up with that person one day, but I'm not gonna actually do anything to make that happen. But more often than not, if you're gonna take things slow in a relationship, it's gonna be like this, where you're like, hey, we both know what's up, we're not really ready to commit to anything, and if it happens, it happens, and if it don't, it don't. And sometimes it do, sometimes it don't. Apparently Google thought I was talking to it. Let's see. Okay, this is actually funny. I wouldn't acknowledge this, but Google on my phone picked up what I was saying. And some related things are, how do you get into a relationship? Intimacy issues, commitment issues, hot and cold relationships, what can you do? Restaurants nearby, play a game, find flights. Like, my phone strap is like, yo, you got issues. That's funny. Apparently I must have said something that sounded like, okay, Google. Yeah, that's what happened. And that just picked that up, and it was like, bro, are you okay? But the reason that this happens, instead of just going straight into a relationship, is usually because y'all know how each other feel. I don't know if that's proper grammar. Y'all know how each other feel. Let's just make that saying, put that on a t-shirt. Y'all know how each other feel. But maybe it's not the best idea to commit to something at the stage of life you're in. Maybe you're in school. Maybe you're in between jobs, in between stages. You're about to do something really big with your life. The future for you is unclear, so it's unclear if that person will be able to fit into your life. So instead of actually like saying, yo, we're gonna be this thing, you just kind of spend time with that person and do the relationship stuff that you would normally do, but without any real commitment, and you're just like, okay, like, let's see what happens. For example, in this situation, Deckard was trying to make a choice between finding happiness where he's at in life, which is depressed in a job that doesn't challenge him but he's also passionate about, and just like moving forward with that with the silver lining of being in a relationship with B potentially, or he could leave it all behind and go off to go to culinary school where he can really expand on that passion at the cost of leaving everyone that he cares about behind, including his best friend, and any potential they might have of being more than that, which he does. And I really like how that's handled, because usually in fictional situations like this, they don't really go with what the logical choice would be. They usually go with the choice based in fantasy, because in fantasy, you want to believe, like, okay, like, I make this sacrifice to be with this person, and then we live happily ever after, and that's all fine. But that's not really realistic. Like, fictional characters always want to pull the love over everything card, and I hate to break the magic, but usually stories end once they make that decision because it's not a sustainable one. Expecting your relationship to give your life fulfillment in place of your passions is not fair to your relationship. It's not fair to the person you're in a relationship with. It's putting a bunch of stress from outside factors of you not trying to be happy with yourself, and then you're bringing that into a relationship, because whether it's a romantic or a platonic or any type of relationship, if you are making sacrifices that compromise yourself on a regular basis, like really compromise yourself beyond reason, like in this case where you're just like, oh, I'm not gonna be happy with my life, I'm going to continue to be depressed to be with this person, your relationship starts with you. So just by doing that, you're setting up your foundation to collapse. And again, it's even explicitly stated by Deckard's sister Cass when she says, you know, if you're putting off on going and doing this thing that's going to make you happy for the sake of potentially being in a relationship with B, then that's really not fair to either of you, and neither of you are going to be happy. And she even straight up says, like, I don't think she would want that for you. So in this case, it made the most sense for Deckard to go do what he's passionate about and create a situation where he feels like he can truly be happy in his life, instead of thinking that a relationship with B would solve all of his problems. Which B is aware of this situation, and she starts connecting the dots that Deckard is avoiding applying for culinary school. And it's hard for her, because why would he not want to go and do that thing that's going to make him happy? Oh, it's because of me. It's me. I'm enabling him to not be happy. That sucks. Which is especially rough because whenever the topic comes up, she openly shows support for him going and doing that. She encourages him to go and do that because she knows that's what's going to make him happy. And she also expresses to him that even though she will be sad when he's gone, she would want him to go and do what he loves, which he ends up doing. He decides to apply and leave her school, seeming to be a change for the better. He now has a sense of purpose, and you can tell that's a really positive step for him moving forward. But there's also no melancholy loss in the fact that he is leaving behind all the important people in his life, including B. And now we can really dive deep on her. B is a bit more than just a young woman living with her puppycat in a modest lifestyle, working temp job to temp job. She's getting by with temp jobs that have extraordinary and fantastic twists. It's involving going on all these various adventures across these different dimensions and worlds that have their own weird rules. But even these crazy adventures seem to maintain a pretty laid-back, easygoing tone as the rest of the show does, with some exceptions. And the reason why B is able to do all of this is because she is low-key a cyborg, or an android, or a robot. We're not exactly sure. It's something like that. And we believe that there was a human B at one point, but not anymore. And Puppycat, we don't really know what his deal is for sure. Something about getting catfished by a princess and turned into a cat-dog hybrid monster thing via curse, because curses be doing that. Most of what we know about both B and Puppycat is open to interpretation, because most of it is based on just bits of information we get from these mundane situations, because again, this is just a very, very low-key, the story's just very low-key. It's just like day-to-day, not crazy, aside from sometimes some of the temp jobs. I have depression. We do know that B is some sort of synthetic human. We know that her father is not around anymore, and she had a very close relationship with her father. And he left her a mechanical box called the Dad Box that would make her feel less lonely on her birthday. And in the last episode, we see her using it to repair her robot arm after it was damaged in a temp job. So yeah, there's a lot going on with that box and that whole relationship there. And my guess is that B either passed away or she got terminally ill. Well, she definitely got terminally ill. B's dad was a scientist. Her father had to use his technical knowledge to try and save her. And he either failed, and now this is like an Astro Boy situation where she's a robot replica of his daughter who has all of her memories and mental existence and cognizance. Or she's a cyborg, and he had to make her a cyborg in order for her to survive after the illness had destroyed her body or whatever. I would guess it's probably the latter, where she's a cyborg or android, because she still does things like eating and drinking, doing human things. So I would assume that means she's at least part human. But also, I don't know the rules of this world. Maybe robots eat normal human food in this universe. I don't know. The main lead for this theory is that B just directly mentioned that she got very sick when she was young and her dad was taking care of her, and it got to the point where she couldn't even go outside, so we know it was serious. And whatever happened to B's father happened with enough foresight that he could make this box to both make her feel less lonely and just kind of generally try to look after her after he was gone. And whatever did happen, it happened a while ago. We see her dad's old arcade, and it looks very run down, like nobody's looked after it for a few decades at least. Which also means that some form of immortality, or just like fountain of youth type deal, is going on with B. And that's implied by both that and comments about how she hasn't grown up. And yes, I know, literally the characters saying that meant, isn't it strange that she hasn't matured? Like, they're calling her immature. However, like I said, they say things to communicate things to the audience very literally. So I'm assuming that they literally mean, like, the text to the viewer, she hasn't aged. Because they do that a lot. Like, for example, at one point Deckard comments that B is really heavy, like her bones are made of metal. And then, lo and behold, we see her bones are in fact made of metal. So comments about the fact that she hasn't grown up, coupled with the fact that we know that she's not entirely human, and also the fact that it seems like she's been around a lot longer than someone who is portrayed to be in her early to mid-20s, probably make some assumptions there. You probably start connecting some dots, but that does imply something more to the situation with Deckard, because maybe this isn't the first time that this has happened, where she gets close to someone only for them to outgrow her and then go on to do something else with their life. Maybe because she's had a hard time growing up mentally through the trauma of losing her father, or maybe she's afraid of alienation. She's afraid to open up to people because she either thinks that she's going to be ostracized, or maybe she had a past experience where she opened up to people that made her believe that if people knew the truth about what she was and who she was, the truth about her makes her less worthy of relationships with people. Because going back to that situationship deal with her and Deckard, we know why Deckard is not trying to commit. But that's clearly not a one-way thing. That's clearly a mutual thing, which that's the only way that stuff works. Because if one person is like, yo, let's commit, the other person's like, maybe not. That's not good. That's unhealthy. Like, move on. We know why Deckard is unsure about committing, but why is B unsure about committing? It's probably the expectation, and therefore the desire, for B to see Deckard go on and pursue his culinary career and leave her behind. She has probably come to accept that people are going to come in and out of her life, and now she just accepts that and learns to appreciate them while they're there, and learns to say goodbye when it's time for them to go. And she just hopes that, like Deckard, they'll go on to do something that'll make them happier. And she probably wasn't expecting Deckard to even consider staying with her. And the fact that he was even considering it, maybe it said something about their relationship. Maybe it was different this time, making it even harder for her to let go than it usually would be. Even though she knew, or at least felt like, they both needed to do that. They both needed to move on from each other. And in the last scene of season 1, which as of now is the last scene of the show, because I don't know what's happening with season 2, don't look at me, they don't tell me nothing about that. But in this last scene of season 1, B's demeanor has changed a lot from what we've come to expect from her. Usually she would be bubbly and energetic, but now she's calm and reserved. She's not hysterical, she doesn't seem sad, she's just very out of character. But not in a way that's like misrepresenting her, it's in a way to tell us as the audience that something is wrong. She's coping with the fact that she knows that she just lost her best friend. But she seems like she's already accepted it. It hurts. But she's moving on because what else can she do? As though she's done this before and she's spent enough time mourning friends that she genuinely believes will be better off without her. And now she's just numb to it. She doesn't cry anymore. She doesn't wish or bargain. She just tries to let go and move on. So I'm really intrigued to see what a season 2 might include. Whenever that actually comes out. If it's coming out. I don't even know. There are a lot of ways that this story can go, and that makes it really interesting. And it's so interesting that a show that presents itself as just very surface level, easygoing, easy watching, is actually layered enough to have all these different ways that things can go. It proposes so many different questions about who these characters are and how their stories are going to play out. That's all I gotta say, but before we roll the outro, honestly, drops March 13th. I don't know if this is gonna come out before or after that. I can't. This is in a weird pocket of time, but you can find that on my YouTube channel, EPQN Productions, or my SoundCloud of the same name. Check it out. I worked really hard on it. I've been working on it since like August or September. No, it's been August. I just remember when I first showed it to somebody. It was definitely August. So yeah, I've been working on it for a minute. So definitely go and support that if you want to or not. I won't be offended. I just worked really hard on it and just, I've done enough self-promotion. Roll the outro. Thank you so much for watching Let's Talk with Tom on the Roundtable. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like, and you can comment down below to give us your thoughts, or you can find us at Roundtable Vids on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or you can find me at TommyPQM on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to go above and beyond to support the Roundtable, you can click the join button down below to become a channel member, or you can pledge to us on Patreon, link in the description, and you can even support us by checking out our Teespring, where you can get shirts like this and many more to rep us out in public. As always, my name is Tom. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. See ya!